Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Brian McSparron with Superior Sports Psyche, and today we're doing a presentation or webinar on the importance of the mental game for youth athletes. And it's part of a youth sports educational workshop that I've been putting together. But this one here today is going to be focused around parents. And the goal for the parents is to help raise a resilient athlete. And when we raise a resilient athlete, our goal is to build unshakable confidence in your athlete for success for both sport and in life. And again, my name is Brian McSparron. I am been coaching for over 20 plus years. I've coached numerous different sports at different levels, including youth, the high school and college levels. My major sports that I coached were related to ice hockey, lacrosse, soccer, track, cross country, as well as tennis. And I have a bachelor's degree in sports medicine and athletic training, as well as a master's and specialist degree in physical education and sports science. And I have over 20 years of teaching physical education. And I am actually an author, and I'm a certified mental sports and performance coach. And so as a mental sports performance coach, my passion is to go out there and speak to teams or coaches and parents, as well as athletes, about the importance of mental training and teaching them mental skills and techniques that can be implemented to help make them a better athlete. And that's the goal, is we're trying to help our athletes become a better athlete, both on and off the playing field. The purpose of today of this webinar is I want to give some insight into the mental game of sport and why it's so important, as well as to give sports parents and coaches mental tips and strategies that they can use to help improve your athlete's confidence. The outline for tonight, what we're going to do is, first we want to talk about is exactly, what is sports psychology? See, a lot of people just don't understand the importance of sports psychology, so I want to explain what sports psychology is, as well as what is mental sports performance coaching. Those two kind of go hand in hand together. Then we're going to talk about the idea of managing the mental game of sport, because the sport now is so mental that athletes cannot rely on just their physical skills alone. If they really want to get to the next level of sport, in whatever sport they're playing and at whatever level, they have to learn and understand the mental side of the game. Now, the presentation that I'm going to do today is not worried about if your kid or your athlete is playing a travel program or a rec program. Okay, this goes together. Okay, so it doesn't make a difference at what level your athlete is playing at. Then we're going to talk about the confidence and how athletes gain and lose confidence. And then we're going to discuss tips on how to raise a confident athlete, on what you can do. And then we'll find out if your athlete can benefit from mental sports performance coaching. And then we'll finish up with final thoughts. Okay, so that's the outline for today. But first of all, is to explain is, what is sports psychology? And a lot of people just really don't understand the role of psychology in sport. When people talk about sports psychology, a lot of times they have this negative image, or this image of laying on a couch and talking about all your thoughts and your feelings, what they see through psychology. That is not what sports psychology is. In essence, what sports psychology is it's under the field of sports science. And in the field of sports science, we have different topics. It's topics like sports psychology. We have sports physiology, talks about the physical training of our bodies. We have sports medicine. What are we going to do when an athlete gets hurt? We're going to talk about, we have also sports nutrition, how to feed our athletes so they can be properly have a proper diet and hydration so they can go out there and perform their best. And then as well as sports biomechanics. Sports biomechanics is pretty much what your coaches are, where they're going to teach the physical skills of their particular sport, and they try to help adjust their body mechanics and their techniques to fit their particular sport so they can succeed. In reality, when we're looking at is we don't treat or diagnose an illness. Now, all of these departments, our job is to help enhance athletic performance. So sports psychology is a method of teaching athletes how to use their minds in order to enhance their athletic performance. And that's the goal. Now, mental sports performance coaching is what we're going to do is we're going to take some tips and strategies from sports psychology, and we're going to help your athlete break through barriers in order for them to play consistently, play freely, play calmly, as well as play confidently. And those are the big things that we're trying to help our athletes do. Now, if our athletes can play freely, calmly, and confidently, then the chances of them having a good outcome on the playing field is greatly enhanced. So our goal is we want to get our athletes to perform at their level for them to reach a peak performance. Now, what is a peak performance? Peak performance is going to be different from every athlete. So what we want to do is we want to take their potential, their physical potential of what they can do at their moment of time. And then what we want to do is limit the amount of interferences that will offset their physical potential. Too many times what happens is the interferences get in the way of our athletes in order for them to play at a top level. So how many times have you seen athletes play or do really well in practice, but when they go into a game, they look like a totally different athlete during competition? It's not like they lost their physical skills. They still have their physical skills, but what's getting in the way is mental barriers. So when we look at some interferences what are some interferences that can sabotage your athlete's potential? Well, that could be just the lack of their confidence to going out there and perform. They might have a loss of focus. They might have anxiety. They might get really nervous. They might be dwelling on mistakes that might have happened in their game, and it just lingers with them throughout the whole performance. So these are just kind of examples of different things that might sabotage your athlete from playing at a top level. So if you look at your athlete, what interferences can you think of that holds your athlete back from playing their best? Most of the times, they're going to be mental issues. And when they're mental parts of the game, all the physical training that your athlete might do won't help them if they're still having mental situations, because the physical and the mental are two separate things. But we want to train the body as one. So in essence, what we want to do is, and when we talk about mental sports performance coaching, is think of us as a support coach for your athlete. Just as if you were going to sign your athlete up to work with a personal trainer to work on the physical part of sport, okay, to get them bigger, faster, and stronger. They're working on the physical. Working with a mental sports performance coach or a sports psychologist, we're going to be a support coach to help develop the mental. And when you put the physical and the mental, and that player can incorporate both, then your athlete has a chance to be unstoppable. And you're going to give your athlete that edge that they need over their opponents. So when we talk about mental sports performance coaching and the mental game, these are some of the things that we can work with your athlete. Okay, we're going to help develop and give them skills to help build up their confidence. We're going to help build up their self-esteem. We're going to teach them on how to relax in the heat of performance and when they're playing. We're going to teach them how to be more motivated to go out there and practice, be a better teammate to their teams, and be able to communicate with their coaches. We'll teach them skills on so they can focus better and be able to concentrate and not get distracted by outside noise. And we teach them by giving them skills such as teaching them the traits of visualization, and mental imagery, and then really diving down and setting some real good athletic goals for themselves. So these are just the snippets of different things that we will do with mental coaching to help your athlete become and enhance their athletic performance. So now we know what sports psychology is. I want to really quickly talk about what some of the myths are about sports psychology. And this becomes real important. And some of the myths that we see is that only elite athletes need sports psychology. This is so far from the truth. People think that, it's for the college athlete or for the professional athletes. Any athlete that is looking to help enhance their performance will benefit from some form of sports psychology or mental sports performance coaching. Now, as far as the age, where it becomes really good, it's really good anywhere between like the middle school age, anywhere between 12, 13 is a really good start. But I work with athletes that are as young as 10, and I work with them really up into the high school levels. And so for me personally, I like the athletes that are between 10 and 18. That's a good age for me. Those are the athletes that I enjoy working with. But my philosophy is all athletes should have some form of mental coaching to help balance themselves when they're on the playing field. Coaches will think that I'm mentally weak if I incorporate sports psychology. Again, we're looking to help enhance your performance. Okay, so your coach will not look at you as being weak when you're on the playing field, okay, or going through some sports psychology training. Because they're looking at you, that you're taking the initiative to help your athlete get better. So coaches won't look at you as being weak. You can't measure the results of sports psychology. Yes, you can't logically and have statistics related to sports psychology, but what you're going to do is you're going to have a different sense of your performance out there. And when you notice when things that are normally bothering you are no longer bothering you because now you have the tips and strategies to overcome those issues, that's when you know sports psychology is working for you. Okay. So yeah, you might not have tangible results as far as numbers, but you're going to be able to measure the results based on your performance, because now you're going to realize and think back, I used to be like this, now I'm not. Now I'm seeing my performance skyrocket. You're either mentally tough or you're not, and you can't improve mental toughness. And this goes back to learning about the different mindsets that we teach athletes. And this is more of a fixed mindset. Okay, mental toughness can be improved, and any athlete that thinks that cannot, then they are stuck in a fixed mindset. So we promote and we try to teach our athletes more of that growth mindset way of thinking. And we teach them through different types of skills to teach them the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and why it's so important in athletics. You only need a mental coach if you're in a slump. That's so far. If you're in a slump, there are so many things that have gotten you there in the first place. Okay, so you can use the mental coach to help prevent you from getting into a slump. Again, sports psychology, mental sports performance coaching is all about trying to help enhance your performance, to make you better. So I really suggest that recommend that all athletes, if you have an athlete, really look at and assess their mental game to determine if they can benefit from mental sports performance coaching. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on at the end of this presentation. So the next thing I want to shift into is understanding when we talk about managing the mental game of sport. And this kind of covers all different sports, regardless of if you're playing football, baseball, softball, gymnastics, any team sport, any individual sport. Is this little topic called the performance cycle. And the performance cycle is nothing more than understanding that our thoughts are going to affect an emotion, and our thoughts and emotions are going to affect our performance. So our thoughts plus our emotions is going to direct our performance. And so our thoughts are going to elicit an emotion, and that emotion is going to affect our performance. And this is so important to understand this relationship. And too many times as athletes, we tend to have negative thoughts. Oh, that shot was in, or don't mess up, or I can't hit his curveball. These are all different examples of different thoughts that an athlete will play with themselves in their mind. So just think about with your athlete and what type of negative thoughts have you heard them say before that relates more negative. And if you listen closely to your athletes, you probably would hear more negative thoughts than you do positive thoughts. And then what we do is we try to help shift that thought process. Because when you have negative thoughts, again, thoughts are going to affect an emotion. These negative thoughts right here is going to affect an emotion of anger, fear, and frustration. So if you are competing and you are feeling angry, you're feeling fearful, or you're feeling just really frustrated, then you're going to start to compete with fear, anxiety, and tension during your performance. Now, no athlete can compete while they're having fear and anxiety and tension. It just doesn't work. And this is why we try to explain the differences between the physical part and the mental part. When athletes are dealing with slumps or they're dealing with they can't hit something, they'll go and they'll just keep on practicing and practicing and practicing the physical part. But understanding that the root cause of why they're feeling that way is mental. You can't treat the mental by working the physical. Okay? It doesn't work that way. We have to deal with it head on. And that's why incorporating mental skills training becomes so important. So our goal for our athletes, we want them to be able to compete freely and relaxed. And when they are be able to be free and relaxed, then they know that they're having a good relationship with their thoughts and their emotions. They're going to be equally positive. All right. And if we can have positive thoughts plus positive emotions, then 9 out of 10 times we're going to have a good performance. And that's our goal. Now we talk about the physical part of athletics is, athletes see the physical part and they always want to be bigger, faster, and stronger than their competition. And this is where, the separation or the problem comes, because they want to be bigger, faster, and strong. They can see that stuff. They can measure that stuff. But one of the things is about bigger, faster, stronger, and especially during, that middle school age where kids are starting to develop. Everybody develops differently. You can have a middle school kid in 8th grade, 13, 14 years old. They might be 5'5". And then you're going to have another kid that's going to be 6 foot tall. Okay. Well, this kid is already at a disadvantage because he's not bigger, faster, and stronger than this kid. Okay. And it doesn't make a difference how much physical skills he tries to work on this. He's going to be at a disadvantage. And one of the things that we try to explain and teach our athletes is to focus on the things that we can control. We can't control our development. Our body's going to develop as it goes. And athletes, they just get frustrated, especially during that middle school years. And we want to teach them and give them ideas and how to overcome those, because it can really shock them. We have to understand that the body plays the sport, but the mind controls the action. The body plays the sport, but the mind controls the action of what the body's going to do. So because what we said before is that your athletes have the physical skills to compete in their sport. They can dribble the ball, they can shoot the ball, they can throw the pitch, they can hit the ball, they can run. They have all those physical skills to play the sport that they're playing, but the mind is going to control how well they do it and at what level they do it. So we have to treat everything together. Because what happens is, again, is that our minds get in the way of their progress. And that's the thing that we're trying to control. And we're trying to teach our athletes on how to not let their minds get in the way of their performance. And they can be taught that. They can develop those skills so that their mind is not getting in the way of their performance. Because top performing athletes learn how to control their thoughts and their feelings. And the way I try to explain to athletes is, our mind is like a TV. Just like if you're watching TV and you don't like something, you change the channel. Same thing happens in our mind. If we notice something's going on in the mind that we don't like it, we have the ability to stop that thought and then change it. I say change the channel. We can't stop our brains from thinking because it's constantly going, but we can focus on the things that we want it to focus on. And that's the key to learning about the mental game. What's the number one barrier that limits athletes from playing their best? And that's confidence. Confidence is the number one barrier that gets in the way of athletes from performing their best. And this is what probably the number one thing that I get from parents when asked to work with their athlete is, hey, can you help my kid with confidence? And the answer is yes, and not only confidence, but we're going to work on a lot of other issues as well. But confidence is probably the number one barrier that gets in the way. So the first thing we want to understand is, what is confidence? Confidence is nothing more than the athlete's belief to execute the skill or the task. Can they hit the ball? Can they hit the basket or dribble the ball or shoot the basket? Okay. It's their own belief on how well they think they can do it. So think of, the specific skills in your child's sport. How confident are they in executing the different skills that go along with that sport? So maybe he's dribbling with the right hand, really good, but not so much on the left hand. Maybe they can cross dribble, okay? But between their legs, they're not. So everything in sports is specific. And the thing about confidence is they can be confident in one area of the game and not necessarily confident in another area of the game, okay? Take swimming, for example. Your athlete might be really confident in their freestyle swimming, but not necessarily confident in their backstroke. Two different things, but they're still a good swimmer, but one area is more confident than the other, okay? And then what we do is we try to figure out why, and we work on developing those skills for confidence. And the thing about confidence is that it's very fragile. It could be up, it could be down, and it changes from game to game. Especially if your athlete had a bad game, one game, and they're playing another game that afternoon, okay, and they're already thinking about the game that happened this morning, they might not be so confident going into that second game if they had a really bad first game. So it can change from game to game, and you're still playing the same sport. So again, we teach your athlete how to overcome those things. But the one thing about confidence is that is the basis for our overall development in sport. If we're not confident in a certain thing, in a certain sport, then 9 out of 10 times we're going to quit. We're not going to progress on where we as athletes, young athletes, they want to see progression in their sport. They want to see themselves get better. But if they don't see it, okay, and they don't feel it, then it doesn't become enjoyable for them, and they get limited on how far they can go. So we want to help teach those athletes how to get to that next level. They already have the physical skills. Now is incorporating this part of the game. Because success leads to enjoyment. Okay? All right. So where does confidence come from? So your athlete gets confidence from different ways. One is going to be from past experiences, okay? From previous games. They had a really good game in the morning. That's going to carry them into their next game in the afternoon. They might have maybe won an MVP, of a tournament. Okay, that's going to help build up their confidence. So confidence is going to come from past experiences. Confidence is just going to be, they're going to get their overall belief in their abilities. Okay, internal belief. They're going to get their confidence from their practices. As they keep practicing, they're going to get more and more confident doing the skill, okay, in their preparation. And they're going to gain confidence from both their physical and mental training as well, too. So these are all different areas on where an athlete will gain their confidence, as well as they can lose their confidence as well, too. So they can lose their confidence from past experiences, like we just mentioned. They can lose their confidence in their belief in their abilities. Okay, they feel like they're struggling, okay, in a practice. They're not going to be confident taking that skill into a game. Take a sport like tennis. Okay, if your tennis coach is teaching them a different serve, all right, and she wants the coach wants your athlete to incorporate that serve into the next match. But during practice, the athlete felt that they were struggling with that serve. That athlete's probably not going to be confident enough to do it in the actual competition. So you see how all this relates. You can go on both the positive and the negative side as well, too. So how does an athlete lose confidence? Well, they lose confidence in several different ways. Athletes have a fear of failure. They don't want to let people down. They don't want to let teammates down. They don't want to let parents down, coaches down. But most importantly, they do not want to let parents down, okay? So a lot of times, because of this fear, athletes will hold back and not be aggressive enough to go out there and do what they need to do, because they're afraid of making a mistake, because they're going to feel that they let somebody down, okay? So fear, again, a lack of trust in their abilities to go out there and perform. They're going to overanalyze and overthink the situation. Baseball player might be up there, for a hit, the batter, and he's overanalyzing and saying, making sure that, I got a good stance, my hands are good, I got to shift my weight, I got to see the ball, I'm doing all this stuff. And the batter is just thinking about this while they're in the batter spots. If your batter is thinking about what they have to do in their sport, then they're not focused in the present moment. And we teach that to our athletes as well, too. So if you see athletes overanalyzing that stuff, that means they're losing confidence in their abilities. And a real big one here is, again, trying to play perfect. They don't want to make mistakes. Okay, so trying to be a perfectionist is really big on them. They might have gone 2 for 4 in a baseball game, but to them, that's not good enough. They might have scored 10 points in a basketball game, but that wasn't good enough. So trying to be perfect and try to play up to expectations, those are real big things on how athletes can lose confidence as well, too. So the question can come down to is, how can you as a parent help improve your athlete's confidence? And what I came up with is, and I want to share with you today, are my 7 tips on how you can help build confidence for your athlete. And my goal with this in giving you 7 tips is, if you can incorporate 1 or 2, that can go a long way in helping your athlete just kind of feel more confident going forward. Because again, us as parents, our athletes do not want to disappoint us. So we have to be really mindful of that when we're talking and trying to work with our own athlete. Okay? They don't want to let us down, and understand that part. So the first thing that I'm going to share with you is anywhere between the 30-minute rule and the 24-hour rule. And the 30-minute rule and 24-hour rule means, don't talk about the game right after the game. allow emotions to digress, chill down a little bit. Because in sports, even us as parents, we are emotionally attached to the game because our athlete, our kid, our son, our daughter is playing in that game. And yes, we want them to go out there and succeed. But because of the emotions of the game, sometimes we as parents take the emotions too much and we deflect our emotions to our kid. And they're taken back by that. So don't talk about the game right after the game. Allow the game to digress, talk about other things. And I really talk about this, especially in my book, is about the car ride home. And once we get our kid into the back seat and they're buckled up, and we get into the front seat, we're ready to drive, and then boom, we're pounding our kid about the game. We gotta take that away. Let's talk about something else about the game. All right. And because that right there, the car ride is really difficult for the athlete on the ride home, because 9 out of 10 times, as parents, we're talking about the negative things rather than the positive things. And in my book, I kind of share on different techniques and suggestions on how we can have a positive ride home, going home from the game. When we go back to the 24-hour rule, is then ask your athlete the permission to talk. Allow them to come up to talk to you about the game. Okay? They might not want to talk about it. You know what? And that's perfectly fine. Let them go. And if they're excited about it, yes, allow them to express themselves how they feel. But also understand is, we don't want to judge our athletes. Be open up to their communication. Allow them to talk, express their feelings, and we are just going to be there to help support and guide them, okay, along the way, and not critique how they feel. So again, allow their demeanor to direct the conversation. So first really good tip is allow the 30-minute to 24-hour rule apply. Performance over outcome. Talk about the process and not the outcome. And this is probably one of the biggest things that we talk about when we work with athletes, is understanding the difference between the process and the outcome. Outcomes of a game, of a performance, the athlete cannot control. The athlete cannot control the outcome of the game. The athlete, however, can control the process of how they compete and what they do to compete in order to get the best outcome available. So we want to talk about the process over the outcome. And when we talk about that, in essence, what we're talking about is we teach our athletes what are controllables and non-controllables. And this is probably one of the biggest things that athletes learn when I work with them, is the differences between the controllables in sports and the non-controllables in sports. And once they understand this relationship, it puts everything in perspective, because then it shifts their thought patterns. Because when we talk about the controllables, we talk about our thoughts, our efforts, our preparations. Can we control those? Yes. We have the capability by our actions to control our thoughts, efforts, and preparations. But on the flip side, can we control the officials, the outcomes, and the other team? No. We can't control our officials, the outcomes, and the other team. However, what do we tend to focus on either during, after, or before the game? Is this the officials and the other team? We can't control those. So we don't want to put energy into things that we cannot control. So what we try to say is, what did you learn today on what you can do in order to get better? And that's understanding the performance. We want our athletes to learn every day that they're in practice. We want them to learn every day when they are playing a game. They're not going to win every game. They're not going to make every single play. They're going to lose, and they're going to make mistakes. But we want them to learn from those situations. And as we talk about the performance and the process, we want to take notice of the little things, especially as a parent. Notice the little things that your athlete is doing. Maybe they weren't able to do a certain dribble, and you saw during the game that, hey, we noticed that you're really weak on your left hand, but there was that one situation where you had to switch to your left hand and you were able to get around that defender. That was really good. Or maybe it was, you're a softball player and she's up there and she's struggling to hit, but she was able to get 3 foul balls. That's a stepping stone. So we want to take notice of the little things that your athlete is doing in their sport and not dwell on the outcome of what occurred. And that's what we try to do when we work with athletes is we do a little exercise after every game is what did they do well in a game? Pick out 1 or 2 things that they did really well. Pick out 1 or 2 things that you want to get better at. And then how are you going to do that in order to get better? So it puts a lot of onus on the athlete to get away from looking at the outcome and start learning internally of what they need to do in order to get better. So again, focus on the process, not the outcome. Number 2, we want to look and talk about setting goals. Eliminate the expectations, and we want to set little mini goals. And so our expectations they're really demands of the sport. And again, when we put demands and expectations, then what we're doing is we're focused on the outcome. We're focusing on the results of the game. So for an example, an expectation that an athlete might have on themselves, and sometimes parents put this on athletes too. And then the athlete takes the expectations from the parent. So for example, you have to get, make sure you go out there and get 5 strikeouts today. Well, if they're a pitcher, that puts a lot of expectation on me as a pitcher now to try to get those 5 strikeouts. What happens if, we win the game and I pitch a good game, but I only strike out 2? Am I going to look at that performance as being good or bad? Well, if I have an expectation of 5 strikeouts, I'm going to say, yeah, but I didn't get my 5 strikeouts. That puts so much pressure on our athletes. So we want to set goals instead of the expectations. Because when we set goals, now we're working for improvement and we're focusing on manageable objectives of the game and sports. So for an example, here are some different types of goals that you can do. So for example, in golf, let's set a goal of hitting the fairway 75% of the time. So after their round, they can go back and look at, okay, of my 18 tee shots, how many of them were in the fairway? And we can judge that. Okay, you can measure that. Hey, attack the paint when you have the ball. So if I have an expectation of in basketball and I feel like I need to get some scoring baskets, well, in order for me to do that, I have to be aggressive. So I got to attack. So when I have the ball, now I got to focus on attacking the paint in order to get to that basket. And if I do that, I give myself a better opportunity to score points. So again, I'm not telling them I got to get 15 points in a game. We're going to work on that goal to attack the paint, so it gives me the opportunity to get points and maybe get close to that 15 points. If they're a pitcher in baseball or softball, we're going to focus 1 pitch at a time. Not trying to get 5 strikeouts in a game. We're going to focus on 1 pitch at a time. So you can see these are just little goals, and these are, again, based on their performance cues, okay, on what they have to do in order to get a good desired result in their game. All right, number 4. I want you to watch your athletes' self-talk and body language. You can tell a lot in your athlete's confidence level just by looking at their self-talk on how they talk to themselves and by reading their own body language. And our self-talk is nothing more than, again, our inner thoughts, our inner dialogue that we have. We all have that. Okay. And a lot of times, athletes, we tend to go negative. So we want to catch our athletes when they are starting to say the words like, I can't hit him, or I can't win. If you're hearing those negative things, they're focusing a lot on the negatives. And then when we hear the negatives, we want to give them some ideas on how to refocus those thoughts into more of a positive. And what we do is we teach the athletes some affirmations. We teach them a belief setting. Okay, a good one is just that, if I'm hearing that I can't do X, Y, and Z, well, I am in the process of learning how to X, Y, and Z. So we kind of shift those thoughts a little bit from more to a negative to more of a neutral to positive, so it doesn't get in the way of their performance. And then they can look at their performance in a different way. And lastly, we want to look at the body language of our athlete. We want to make sure that our chest is up tall, we want their head is up, and their shoulders are back. That's a good sign of good body language. If you see them coming down, they're kind of drooping down like this, we want to say, get your body language up. And what we teach the athletes is what we call the ABC rule. The ABC rule just simply stands for always behave confidently. Okay, A, B, and C. Always behave confidently. And what that means is chest high, head up, shoulders back. Even when you don't feel it, show it. Because if you show it, then the other team that you're competing against is going to be taken back. Like, oh, this kid is pretty good. But if they're kind of drooping down like this, the other team's going to have the advantage over that player. So again, watch the self-talk and watch their body language. Number 5, have your athlete learn how to breathe, or just breathe. And I'm talking just about breathing, how we breathe every day. We have to do that in order to live. But we want to talk about breathing, so it really helps us to become focused. And so it helps us to become present. And a lot of times, especially when we go, I go and I watch baseball teams, I hear the word focus. Focus on the ball. Well, if your athlete doesn't know how to focus, because focus is a skill, if they don't know how to focus, then when you're telling them to focus on the ball, they don't know how to do it. So in what we can do instead of saying the word focus, you can have them breathe. Just breathe. Take a nice deep breath and blow it out. Okay, and that's going to help us become present. And that's one of the first kind of skills that we work with our athletes, is teaching them just learning how to breathe. Because when they breathe, again, they become focused and they become more present. And here are some examples on when you can have your athlete really focus on their breath. Take them in the batter's box, on the pitching mound, any sport that relates to starting on the blocks, okay, at the free throw line, or before serve. These are all examples on when the athlete has an opportunity in their game just to take a deep breath and breathe. And when they can do that, they become focused, they become present, and they become more relaxed. So replace the word focus and add in the word breathe. 6, learn from your mistakes. Be a positive and supportive parent for your athlete, because your athlete is going to make mistakes, and allow them to make mistakes, and we want them to learn from them. And that's the key. Okay. Again, we talked about before that our athletes they want to impress us. Okay. They don't want to let us down as parents, but we have to reassure them that it's okay to make mistakes, and that you're not going to hold anything back from them. So be supportive. Allow them to make sure that it's okay to make a mistake. And again, go back to our body language, and we talked about the sport being emotional. We have to be in control of ourselves, because our athletes are watching us on how we respond to certain situations. Now, if we get all emotional and we all get hyped up, then the athlete is going to take that on as well too. So make sure that we are in control when our athlete makes a mistake. And then tip number 7, I call this my little top secrets. Before every game, tell them a little secret, okay? Because number 1, kids play sports because it's fun, and we want to make sure that we keep fun in the game. Even at the highest level that your kids want to play at, and they're playing at the travel levels or the AAU teams, okay, it has to be fun for them. If it's not fun, then they're not going to play. So we have to make sure that the sport remains fun. We need to take away the pressures from our athletes. And if we take away the pressure, fun increases. If we place fun on our athletes, fun decreases. So fun becomes very, very critical. So you can say 6 words that just really will hit your athletes really good. And it says, I just love to watch you play, especially at the end of a game. Your kid comes up to you, they played their game, and instantly they're going to ask you, how do you think I did? Okay? Your response immediately should be, regardless of what the outcome was, it's just, I just love watching you play. Boom. Imagine if you said that to your kid. They're like, oh my goodness, that's great. You're not judging me for the mistake that I made. You're not criticizing for me for the error that I made. You're not making fun of me because I missed the basket. Okay? No, I just love watching you play. That will go a long way in building up your athlete's confidence, because their pressure, that they're feeling from us as a parent is gone. So the 6 magic words you can say, remember that, I love to watch you play. In essence, what you're trying to do is you're trying to act like the grandparent. Because regardless of what happens, the grandparents are going to love and support their grandkid unconditionally. And that's what we need to do with our own kids as parents. Love them unconditionally. So there you have, there are my 7 tips to help build confidence that you can do as parents to help build up confidence for your athlete. So again, a 30-minute to 24-hour rule, don't talk about the game. Okay, allow emotions to die down a little bit. Work on the process. Talk about the controllables of the game, not the outcome. Set process goals. We're not going to put expectations, but I want to set little goals for them. Monitor their self-talk and their body language. ABC, always behave confidently. We're not going to focus, but we're going to teach them to breathe. Learning from mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes because that's how we learn. And then finally, tell them those 6 magic words. So see which area of these 7 tips that you can help incorporate to your child and their performance, and see how their confidence might change in their sport. So going back a little bit to about mental sports performance coaching. So how do you know if your athlete can benefit from mental sports performance coaching? Well, here are a couple of questions that we kind of just usually ask, okay? Are they playing up to the best of their abilities? Do they perform better in practice than they do in a game? Do they question or doubt their abilities to perform? Do they speak in negative talk, like I can't? Does your athlete feel nervous or anxious in competition? Does your athlete lose focus during a game? Do they lose confidence when they make a mistake? Now, if your athlete answered yes to any of these questions, then they're going to be able to benefit from some form of mental sports performance coaching to help take your athlete to the next level. So I have 3 different things that I like to offer for athletes, okay? The coaching that I do is all virtually. So no matter where an athlete is, I can work with you over Zoom. I also have an online class too, that athletes can work individually on their own self-paced, okay? And it's already planned out for them. And it's also an add-on to where they can add on coaching, and I can still work with them while they are doing the online course. And then the other one I have is what's called an aptitude profile. And that's really a questionnaire to help see where some of their issues might be in sport. And this is our first start when we start with working with athletes, because we want to develop a picture. Okay, I take this your athlete, and they fill out this profile. I'm trying to put this jigsaw puzzle together to find out exactly what are the different issues that might be affecting your athlete. And then I kind of tell them, hey, you're struggling with performance anxiety, or you're dwelling too much on your mistakes, or I can see you're having a lack of confidence. And then I can kind of explain to them some different ideas on what they can do. Okay, so that's usually the low level of what to work with athletes. But either way, if you're interested, reach out to me, okay, for a free 15-minute Zoom call. I like to do it over Zoom to meet the individual, okay, both either the parent and the athlete, and we'll set up a free 15-minute consultation. We'll talk to you, we'll talk to your athlete, and see what might be getting in the way of performance, and then we can set the proper protocol on what direction might be good for your athletes. My program that I like to focus is, the name of my program is called The Resilient Athlete. And when I teach athletes about being resilient, I focus on 3 key areas, and that's mindset, concentration, and confidence. And what I do is I teach your athlete on teaching them skills on how to develop each of these 3 pillars. Just like if your athlete was learning the skill to dribble a ball, they're going to learn a progression on how to dribble a ball. They might start with their right hand, move to their left hand in a stationary position. They might do right hand walking, left hand walking. Okay, right hand jogging, left hand jogging, right hand running, left hand running. Now they're doing crisscross, right, lefts. That's the progression. The same thing is in this. We teach them skills to help progress in the different pillars of mindset, concentration, and confidence. So I'll teach them specific skills on how to develop each of those 3 pillars. Now, for parents, what I have, this is my book. It's called Raising a Resilient Athlete. And this athlete, my book here is I talk about how to cultivate a growth mindset, how to focus on how to have effective communication. I talk about how to give mindful parenting, working with athletes, as well as talking about confidence boosters that you can incorporate to help your athletes in their game. Now, if you're interested in any of what I have to offer, my book, I got sports journals out there, and my Resilient Athlete course, scan this QR code. This will take you to my Linktree. On my Linktree, you can see my book, you can see my sports journals there, you'll see the course for the Resilient Athlete. But another thing that you'll have on there too is an assessment. Okay, it's a mental game assessment. Download that mental game assessment and then have your athlete, it's a free assessment, have your athlete download that assessment and have your athlete grade themselves. And it's related to the mental game in different areas. And that can really help determine if you think that your athlete might need some additional help related to the mental game. Okay, so that's a real good start. Okay, so download that mental game assessment that's on my Linktree. So finally, I'd love to have your feedback from this webinar. If you scan this QR code, it will take you to a Google form to grade and rate my webinar. I would love to hear about your feedback because it helps makes me help to try to make this presentation a better presentation. Here's a little bit more information about me. If you want to email me, please email me at brian@sspmentalcoaching.com. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. And thank you for watching this presentation. And I look forward to it and enjoy the journey of being a sports parent. Thank you very much.